Good day. Take two. And I was already kind of romping through my book and recording. This is what I'm actually going to be doing today is reading out this, The Mystical Origins of the United States of America, Saint Germain, and my book's in pieces. My name is Kerry DeCourcy, aka Commander Damashimi Narakima. And yeah, welcome. I can't believe what's going on. It's crazy times, but it's begun. It has begun. We are in the disclosure. We are in the event, hurtling towards the singularity. It's amazing. It's incredible. And for anyone who has actually been following some of the crazy, confusing videos I've been doing, I do apologize that it's been some time, but I've had to go within, I'm sure anyone who actually knows me and has seen the videos, I am a survivor of much crazy, weird stuff. And I've been cleansing as much as I can. I've been doing the inner work and just trying to collect all the pieces of my soul, bring them back together so that I can be more grounded and focused. And yeah, so I don't want to kind of, natter on about what's going on in the world and all the crazy because that's what the dark side want. And so I've really decided that from this point forward, I'm only going to be doing positive, deep videos, right? Which are designed to kind of activate people into doing the inner work and really going on a mission of finding out who they are and really building that relationship with God, the one which is you and God and nobody else. All right, because it's real, we are made in the image of man. Sorry, we are made in the image of God. God is in the image of man. I don't know, whichever. Which isn't to say we are God, right? Nothing can be God. God is everything. We're an aspect, an individuated aspect of God, right? But obviously, the world is in an absolute complete state, and the aim of the game is to distract anyone who still has a soul connected from their soul and from the mission, which is to know thyself and know God. That's the only mission that we have. Nothing else matters. Everything else is a distraction, except America. It's all about America. That's why I don't know. I do love America. I've always felt like I'm American. I don't know. I just feel like Americans are just so much more playful and joyous and childlike, but not in a negative way, in a very kind of not naive, but just very honest and simple and just good people. My mum's Irish and has had 13 brothers and sisters, or she was one of 13. And a lot of them went over to America in the sort of 60s, 50s, 60s, and landed in places like Philadelphia, New York, California, Chicago. And so I definitely do feel a massive connection to America. And, when things started to happen in 2020, I don't know, I was like tunnel vision. I was like looking straight at what was going on in America with all the, shenanigans that were going on. And I just knew that this was biblical. Like I just knew there was something going on. And many years earlier, wandering through a bookshop in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, where I used to live up until 2.5 years ago, back in England now, um, a book fell off the shelf, and it was a book by Saint Germain called On Alchemy, Methods for Self-Transformation. And this is what remains of the book. There is another part over here as well. It's kind of all fallen apart. It's been rained on. I've made notes all over it, and then the notes all got rained on, and it's a bit of a mess. So I'm actually going to be reading from the screen, which I'm going to share with you. And the reason that I'm reading it out is because some of the phrasing is quite difficult to kind of understand. And the first time that I read through it, there were little bits that I understood, but generally I was really confused. Saint Germain, don't forget, we've heard a lot of people talking about Saint Germain and Jasara, and I absolutely 1,000,000,000% know that this connection is real. It's true. We have to remember that God is all powerful. It's so crazy to think that we actually went through a time where we thought that the dark forces could take out Earth and humanity and snuff out the good. I truly believe that Earth has been set up along with a lot of the multidimensional humans who are currently here for this time, to kind of end an eons long multidimensional cosmic battle that's been going on between the light and the dark since probably the beginning, since maybe the creator separated itself. And, my view is that whilst everything's necessary for the learning, um, it's now at an end. I think that the Earth game has come to an end. I'm going to explain, well, I'm going to read Saint Germain and you can make up your own minds. Some nice water. I'm also going to be recording on my phone, which I was just doing. And when I tried to pause it to make a comment to the video, I accidentally stopped the recording, so I'm here again. Right, I don't want to talk too much because I don't want people to switch off. It's really important that people hear these words about Saint Germain from Saint Germain, because it's so specific and so pertinent to what's happening in America right now. So I'm going to share the screen. I hope everybody's okay. Look, it's been intense, right? But I mean, I think it's so obvious now that everything that we thought back in 2020 when we were all going around the crazy groups, the Telegram groups and stuff, I think that it's pretty obvious that we are in this incredible, I mean, I want to call it a rescue mission, but then that makes it sound like we're all victims in need of saving, which we're not. We save ourselves, but it is, there is the collective. And I do think people need to be careful bandying around we're here to save ourselves. Nobody can save you except yourself, and you need to do the inner work. It's become a little bit mean, I think, a little bit mean girls. I see in some of the chats the way people talk to each other, especially those who think that they know what's going on. Please always remember to be kind to people. People are possessed by the darkness. Their souls are deep within, screaming to be heard and freed. And, it's not good to look down from your lofty kind of vantage point where you think you are and not be loving, open-armed and helpful to people. Why the nasty meanness, Not everybody's a shill. I've seen people ask innocent questions in chats and go, "Oh, are you blackpilling? Are you blackpilling?" There's no room for people like you. It's just wrong. Um, Even the shills need a little love. Right, okay. Saint Germain and America. As soon as I am about to record, my voice will go. Had a dream as well. I was pulling black hair out of my throat the other day. It was disgusting. It was horrible. And it got to a point where there was just loads of matted hair and I couldn't pull it any further. So definitely black magic and voodoo going on. I see you all. And your powers are decreasing. And those of us who are walking in Christ's light and are here to be spokespeople for the divine creator, well, we're just going to becoming more supersonic. Right, okay. Share screen. The mystical origins of the United States of America. With no further ado, I'm going to read. It's probably going to take about an hour. I highly recommend having a listen because it's really important and will explain a lot. And it will just really allow people to understand that, this plan has been going for a very long time. I know that the people who don't want to believe it don't want to believe because they just don't want to have their hopes shot down. But hope, faith, and charity are essential emotions unique to human beings, which we have been given for this time. All right, because we are in the dark. We've been in the dark. It's been absolutely ridiculous where we've been. But where we're going is a whole other story, and in the blink of an eye and all that. Having crazy interactions with, yeah, my phones, my computers, it's crazy. Right, so the mystical origins of United States of America. Okay, let's start recording, and I'll see you on the other side. I will maybe pause here and there and explain or expound upon some little things, but hopefully I'm just going to be able to read it with an inflection that way you'll be able to understand what's being said. Okay, enjoy. The mystical origins of the United States of America. Saint Germain. In his first inaugural address, George Washington said, "No people can be bound to acknowledge and adore the invisible hand which conducts the affairs of men more than those of the United States." Tell you, it will be non-stop because I want to read out this very important text and the AI doesn't want me to. Anyway, let's continue. An invisible hand in the affairs of men. In an age of power politics, scientific miracles, and ultimate threats, it may come as a surprise that one of the most widely accepted and ancient of ideas was that a divine hand established and ruled the nations. Early Americans believed that an unseen intelligence directed the course of the American Revolution and guided the destiny of this nation. John Adams wrote, "America was designed by Providence for the theatre on which man was to make his true figure." And Patrick Henry said, "There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations." Evidence of the invisible hand of God is nowhere more apparent than in the affairs of our nation. For the swift ascent of the American Republic was nothing less than miraculous. From a loose coalition of seaboard states, united as much by their dislike of the British king as by brotherly affection, the United States grew from a tiny pre-industrial community to the world's preeminent economic, technological, and military power in less than 2 centuries. America became a land of political and religious freedom, a beacon of hope to the nations, and a stage for the playing out of a great historical epic. By the 20th century, America had become a proud land, the American with history as his witness, self-assured. So it was doubly surprising after World War II, when the Republic was at the apparent zenith of her power, that Americans found themselves reeling under the hammer blows of events. Emerging out of the 1950s, the Republic ploughed into heavy seas. Excuse me. I have to keep doing this. I have to pause it and carry on. I am so sorry. Campuses, college towns, and inner cities erupted in flames and violence. A gulf opened up between youth and age, hip and square, black and white, conservative and liberal and radical. Various and sundry revolutions tore through the nation like a series of earthquakes, drugs, rock, and rebellion against the establishment among them, shaking the republic to its foundations. With the suddenness of lightning, President John F. Kennedy, the image of our youth, was struck down. The nation mourned and was never the same. Then the Martin Luther King and another Kennedy assassination followed. And darkness covered the land. Or was it a brooding spirit? Who could see the outworking of an inner design, the gleam of hope, or the turning of the tide? Ah, please forgive me, all this moving around but there, yeah, this video isn't supposed to be a professional video. This is just me in my space. It's a kind of a behind the scenes where you actually get to read the book as well and hear and I'm also going to be adding my little thoughts as I go along. So if you do want to hear the uninterrupted version, I will link the Telegram channel where you can find not only this, but quite a few other readings of Saint Germain. So I think it's interesting here. I mean, this has been written way before, obviously, anything that we're going through now. I think it's interesting that they talk about, JFK and then Martin Luther King and then the other Kennedy assassination and brooding spirits as being the darkness covering the land, because we know we're in a spiritual battle and that we are, beings of light having a human experience, da la la. And it's interesting because I just have this feeling, with the way disclosure's happening, it had to start with JFK. It had to start with the assassination of JFK because there is a story of, you see, I mean, I know we've been, you know, in this kind of prison matrix for a very long time and that the battles have been going on for a long time. But I really feel that since, I don't know, it seems like there was a bit of something weird happened maybe 100 something years ago, and then JFK's assassination, and then 1999. It's like there's been these incremental falls, if you will, of humanity just being kind of trapped further and deeper into kind of pocket realities through CERN and through the wars that have been raging since the First World War. We're just in this weird attack. It's like First World War, Second World War, and then this is the Third World Information War, which doesn't look like they're showing us on the TV. It's nothing to do with bombs and countries. It's to do with the minds and what we think and the information that, is fed into our supercomputer to disconnect us from source, from God. And so the EBS, the disclosure, the Great Awakening, has to, I think, begin with JFK because it's not that long ago. I mean, it seems long ago to our children, but my mother was heartbroken. A lot of the Irish absolutely loved him, obviously, because of his connections to Ireland. And, as it said, the nation mourned and was never the same. So I think it's such a fitting start to disclosure that it's the JFK files that have been released and everything is going to flow from here. So what Saint Germain is saying here, or whoever has transcribed it, Godfrey Ray King, um, but this is through the Lighthouse Summit Press. It's going to kind of explain, what's going on spiritually. So I'm going to stop talking, but I do have to keep pausing to clear my throat because as I speak, and I don't know, is it just because of the vibration of my vocal cords? I don't speak very much because I live on my own. There's no one to talk to. Um, I don't know if it's just clearing me out and I'm having to keep stopping. So anyway, I'm going to now continue and I'm only going to stop if I think there's something confusing or that needs to be expanded on. Make no mistake though, this has been such a long plan, God's plan for sure. Okay, by the mid-70s. By the mid-70s, the storm had largely subsided, but the nation was rudderless and in the doldrums. Vietnam and Watergate troubled the national psyche and left most Americans unsure of their purpose. The Ford years were aimless and lackluster. During the Carter term, US prestige so declined that our allies no longer considered us leader of the free world, but let us know we were now an equal partner. Soviet imperialism was unchallenged because it was presumed to be unimportant or not to exist. America, it seemed, had become a helpless, hapless giant. The capture of 66 Americans in Iran was the height of sorry. Isn't it funny how there are certain words you can't pronounce? Ignominy. Or was it? I have said that word so many times and I still can't say it. It turned out, in fact, to be the turning point. First, there were tremors of shock and indignation. Then, the seizure galvanized a growing but largely unnoticed wave of patriotism. Yankee ingenuity, humor, and determination returned. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan mobilized American resolve to resist communism, and suddenly the apparently dormant American spirit awakened to the dawn of a resurrection. President Carter was out of step with the new mood. The electorate swept him from office and installed a man who promised to lead America to a restoration. Ronald Reagan, 40th American president, rode the resurgent American spirit to a resounding victory. Although one of Ronald Reagan's campaign themes was the return to American greatness, his election was more of an effect than a cause. He was riding the wave, not causing the tide. Something subtle, yet more powerful than any man, is, and always has been, propelling the nation forward toward some unnamed goal. Even though the pomp and circumstance of American heritage is back in style, the new patriotism is still more of a feeling than a conscious articulation of values. There is still confusion about what course of action we, the people, should take. The problem is not one of indecision, but one of identity. When you know who you are, you know what to do. America, who are we? Most of our founding fathers knew. Many early Americans knew also. They were Israelites. Since only a few were Jews and none were citizens of a then non-existent Israeli state, in what way did they deem themselves Israelites? They were Israelites because of their mystical identification with that ancient people and their God. Historians have recognized that the early Americans saw a striking similarity between their own hardships, history, and condition and those of the children of Israel under Moses and Joshua. It was as if they were reliving history. They baptized their children with the names of the Hebrew prophets and patriarchs and likened their present condition to Egyptian bondage, King James to Pharaoh, the ocean whose dangers their ancestors had encountered to the Red Sea, and their new home in the American wilds to the wilderness. Washington and Adams were often referred to as Moses and Joshua. All that was missing were the desert sands of Sinai. The Bible was more than a religious guide to the early New England settlers. It was their political textbook as well. The early criminal codes of the Plymouth and Massachusetts Bay colonies were molded on rules found in Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. By 1776, it was widely accepted that God had established a new American Israel. The idea was preached to approving congregations in sermons with titles such as The Republic of the Israelites, an example to the American states, and Traits of Resemblance in the People of the United States of America to Ancient Israel. The idea was so deeply rooted that the first design proposed for the seal of the United States depicted Pharaoh sitting in an open chariot, passing through the divided waters of the Red Sea in hot pursuit of the children of Israel. Rays from a pillar of fire shone on Moses as he raised his hand over the sea, causing it to overwhelm Pharaoh and the Egyptians. Yet, America was nearly 4 millennia removed and 6,000 miles away from the ancient lands where the Israelites had appeared. The story of the Israelites is a historic epic in which the God of Israel revealed himself, established his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, renamed Jacob Israel, and promised, a nation and a company of nations shall be of thee. I now have a fly bothering me. Whoever heard of flies in March? Really, honestly. Anyway, I do hope whilst I've paused and I can just interject very quickly, I think hopefully you can see how relevant this is and how important it is for us to understand what's happening here. And it's actually happening now. This is happening now. This is all happening now. God's plan to liberate his people spiritually and temporally required great foresight and planning. Talk about invisible hands. God revealed the Egyptian captivity to Abraham before there were any Israelites to speak of. Jacob's son Joseph, sold into slavery by his brothers, now risen to governorship under Pharaoh, told them that God had brought him to Egypt. Jacob and his other sons followed suit, surviving in Egypt during the 7-year famine. But after Joseph and his generation passed, the children of Israel multiplied greatly, and what Abraham had once seen in a dream came to pass. 400 years of bondage. Throughout their historical trek, even to the present, it has been axiomatic that when the Israelites are obedient to God, all goes well. When they fail to keep his commandments, God often uses neighboring peoples to illustrate to them the inexorable nature of the law of karmic recompense. The purpose of the Egyptian captivity was to allow the people to experience firsthand their own recalcitrance heaped upon them through their Egyptian taskmasters. When it came time for their liberation, God sent Moses to lead them out of Egypt to the edge of the promised land, and Joshua to push them over the hill of their remaining waywardness. Under the brilliant leadership of Joshua, the Israelites took the land of promise in a lightning military campaign. One striking feature of the Israelites was their organization into a tribal federation that gave each tribe considerable autonomy. This was the venerated republic that the early Americans admired and sought to recreate. The fortune of the Israelites was anything but constant. Again, the people became rebellious, were carried off into captivity by neighboring nations, and later entirely dispersed. But all was not lost. Around 732 BC, Isaiah prophesied that one day the Lord would assemble the outcasts of Israel and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. There is considerable difference of opinion among scholars and theologians about the meaning of this prophecy. Some believe it refers to the Israelites' return from the 6th century BC. Some believe it refers to the Israelites' return from the 6th century BC Babylonian captivity. Some the return from Assyria. Some to the formation of the modern state of Israel. And some believe it refers to the regathering of the 12 tribes of Israel on American soil. Honestly, maybe you want to go and stop this recording now and just go and check out where I'm pausing. I've got a couple of coughs in there. I mean, it's just, I hate to be coughing and clearing my throat when I'm in the middle of reading out such amazing things, and I kind of feel like I should stop and start again this video. But like I said, this is behind the scenes. Most of the coughing isn't, clearing of my throat isn't in this one. But isn't this interesting? I mean, it's all connected to, star seeds and, the multitudes from heaven, the angelic realms. This is such an enormous, huge, beautiful, incredible event that we're going through right now, and it's all centered in America. I want to be American. Make England the 52nd state. Right, let me see if I can get my nothing at all, ever, until I come to record. Right, let's continue. So the gathering of the 12 tribes of Israel on American soil. That's pretty profound. It seems that in the great odyssey of the Israelites, Nearly 22 centuries passed before there were visible signs of how this prophecy would be fulfilled. The stage was being set for a regathering of the Israelites, but the land to which they were destined to return had to be prepared. In fact, it had to be discovered. This assignment was given by the invisible hand to Christopher Columbus, who discovered America by prophecy. In carrying out his mission, he wrote, "Neither reason nor mathematics nor maps were any use to me. Fully accomplished were the words of Isaiah." Columbus' life is clothed in mystery. The exact date or place of his birth is not known. Some claim he was Greek, others Genoese, and still others a Spanish Jew. He was steeped in astrology, the writings of Marco Polo, the Old and New Testaments, and the Apocrypha. And the two words of his name, Cristobal Colon, mean Christ bearer and colonizer. This mysterious figure was adept in the poetical language of the secret societies of the 15th century and quite possibly a member of the Great Guild of Weavers. Secret societies such as the Guilds, Knights Templars, the Rosicrucians, and the Masons were repositories for the ancient, sacred mystery teachings that were handed down to initiates throughout history. The idea that there is a mystery teaching may seem to some to have a ring of exclusivity out of step with their enlightened notions of freedom of choice. Yet behind the world of effects is an inner world of cause, whose light has illumined men and women throughout the ages, shining in virtually all beneficial, social, scientific, and spiritual movements. Indeed, most religions have an inner teaching that is so similar and so ancient that Aldous Huxley called it the perennial philosophy. Secret societies were sponsored by a brotherhood of highly evolved spiritual beings known as the Great White Brotherhood, who magnetized the sacred fire to their heart's altar. The white light emanating from their auras gives them the appearance of being white-robed, and they are referred to by John the Revelator as the saints robed in white. I'm just going to pause. And this actually is, I think, who we would now call the white hats, you know. Again, let me just repeat to anyone who has doubt in the plan, means you have doubt in God. The princes of darkness cannot snuff out God. And now that we're all learning our lessons and coming back to ourselves, it is now time for the whole planet to be liberated and to enter the golden age. It's happening. It's actually happening. I'm surprised I'm not more excited, actually. I don't know about anyone else, but that's a whole separate video, which I need to do. Anyway, let's continue. Unless you want to go and get yourself a cup of tea. How many pages have we got left? I feel like a teacher reading out to my class. And I would actually say to them, if I saw some of them snoring in the background, 115. That's a little bit there on the Great Seal, which I want to read as well. And then we've got Washington's vision of America's trials, which is important too. Anyway, let's continue. Because there's quite a lot to read here. Okay, so the White Hats, this brotherhood. This brotherhood of adepts has always sought to elevate and enlighten the children of God, working from behind the veil or secretly right in the very midst of the people. They have sponsored the great movements for religious liberty, scientific advancement, and political freedom. The tradition of the secret societies is ancient. They existed at various times in Chaldea, Egypt, Greece, Italy, among the Hebrews, Christians, Mohammedans, and others. Virtually all the great teachers of mankind, Homer, Moses, Pythagoras, Gautama, Jesus, Paul, and others of like stature were initiates of the sacred mysteries. It was Columbus' sponsorship by this mystical brotherhood that made his voyage to the New World something quite out of the ordinary. America had been discovered again and again by Basques, Phoenicians, Druids, Libyans, Egyptians, Chinese, Arabians, Norsemen, and Danes for nearly 2,500 years before Columbus. But Columbus bore in his heart an idea, even the archetypal image of a new race destined to be born out of the old. It was an idea whose time had come. The mantle of destiny descended on Columbus, and the next scene is the great epic of the and the next scene in the great epic of the Israelites was about to begin. As a result of the Brotherhood's sponsorship, the Christ-bearer colonizer captured the old world's imagination and began the enormous colonization movement. A new nation was thus conceived and dedicated to what Roger Williams, founder of Rhode Island, called soul liberty. So a new nation was thus conceived and dedicated to soul liberty. But there was much to be done, for there was no Declaration of Independence and no Constitution, and few understood the karma of an ancient people who had lived even before the Great Flood on a lost continent called Atlantis, much less why or how that past civilization would affect the New World. According to Plato, Atlantis was a land of gleaming white cities and golden temples that sank beneath the sea as a result of violent earthquakes. 60 million were reported to have perished in a single night. Plato received his knowledge of Atlantis from reports brought back from the mystery schools of Egypt by one Solon, an Athenian lawgiver. Early Atlantis was the scene of golden age civilizations whose inhabitants lived together in great spiritual harmony. Later, discord, warfare, and the misuse of advanced technologies created the karmic conditions which caused the continent to sink. Although Atlantis is a legend to many, Legends have a way of moving from the realm of myth into reality with a few timely discoveries. In 1933, Edgar Cayce predicted that a portion of the Temple of Atlantis may be discovered off the coast of Florida. Two pilots, intrigued by this prediction, kept watch as they flew over the area. In 1968, they discovered submerged ruins off Andros Island near Pine Key. The timing of their discovery is linked, at least by coincidence, to another Cayce prediction. In 1940, he said that the western part of Atlantis will be among the first portions of Atlantis to rise again, expected in 68 or 69. Since then, the submerged ruins of step pyramids, raised stone platforms, and great construction projects have been discovered on the ocean floor throughout the Caribbean and Western Atlantic. Although Atlantis may rise again physically, in one respect, it had already returned through the reincarnation of its people. Reincarnation is widely accepted as a fact of life in the East. While still not universally embraced in the West, it is gaining wider acceptance even in the scientific community, more often through individual experiences and recall of former lives. General George Patton, the spectacularly successful World War II strategist, believed in reincarnation. Benjamin Franklin predicted his return in a new and more elegant edition, revised and corrected by the author. Sorry, I just have to interject there. Is that Mr. T? Has Mr. T Soul revised and corrected himself and made himself a more elegant edition? An individual may reincarnate many times, seeking to perfect the soul and balance karma. Likewise, entire civilizations reincarnate together to balance karma and work out their group destiny. Among those who had kept a standard of integrity on Atlantis during its period of iniquity were children of God who reincarnated as the early Israelites. Since then, the seed of Abraham has reincarnated again and again in all nationalities, races, and religions. Thus, Israelites are distinguished solely by their devotion to the person and the principle of the one God. Indeed, they are the issue of the Christic seed imparted to Abraham, yet through reincarnations they have been scattered across all boundaries of race and religion. And I think that's really important to really contemplate, the whole concept of Israel. What is Israel? Who are the Israelites, and how it's all focused on this land. And it's so two-dimensional ridiculousness. The eastern seaboard of North America A portion of the New World where the Israelites were destined to reincarnate was a part of Atlantis that did not sink. But even years after Columbus' voyage, the New World was far from habitable. One initiate of the Brotherhood worked tirelessly to re-establish the Golden Age civilization of Atlantis and to provide the proper environment for the Israelites to fulfill their fiery destiny, the incomparable Francis Bacon. Where has there arisen a genius of equal stature? Lord Chancellor of England, philosopher, author, statesman, scientist, orator, and humorist. Bacon was one of the prophets of the scientific revolution. He instigated the formation and influenced the course of the Royal Society and was a driving force in the Elizabethan Renaissance. Editor of the King James Version of the Bible and the first English essayist, Bacon is thought by many to be the true but concealed author of the works of Shakespeare and other Elizabethan literature. In his most celebrated work, Novum Organum, Bacon presented a method of inductive logic. In Insurrectio Magna, Bacon offered a plan for the total reconstruction of sciences, arts, and all human knowledge, to restore man to mastery over nature, self-mastery. According to Alfred Dodd and other authorities in 1580, at the age of 20, Bacon secretly founded the first Rosicrucian Brotherhood, the Rosy Cross Literary Society, and the first Lodge of the Free and Accepted or Speculative Masons. Now, for those of you who are freaking out by the word Masons and the Rosicrucians, remember it's the duality. All the good stuff was subverted and inverted and infected and manipulated. Okay, this is the original stuff, right? This is all about man knowing who he is, or she is, woman. But what Bacon did for England is dwarfed by the unseen work he performed on behalf of his great dream, the establishment of a new Atlantis. In addition to everything else, Bacon secretly laid the groundwork for the establishment of the United States of America. Bacon entitled an allegorical literary work about a utopian commonwealth, the New Atlantis. Perhaps it was inspired by his recollection of the Atlantean Golden Ages. Thought to be an allegorical reference to America, the book is said to contain the keys to the rituals of Freemasonry. Bacon, the master mason, built for the future. In building for the future, one must instill in others the vital essence of one's own purpose. Bacon's dreams were realizable because the early Masons embraced his purpose. Although few Masons today understand the inner meaning of their own traditions, W. L. Wilmshurst, author of The Meaning of Masonry, points out that Masonry offers a philosophy of the spiritual life of man and a diagram of the process of regeneration. This philosophy is symbolically embodied in its 3 degrees or steps of initiation. According to Wilmshurst, from grade to grade, the candidate is being led from an old to an entirely new quality of life. He begins his Masonic career as the natural man. He ends it by becoming, through its discipline, a regenerated, perfected man. He rises from the dead, a master, a just man made perfect, with larger consciousness and faculties, an efficient instrument for use by the great architect in his plan of rebuilding the temple of fallen humanity, and capable of initiating and advancing other men to a participation in the same great work. The real purpose of modern masonry is not the social and charitable purposes to which so much attention is paid, but the expediting of the spiritual evolution of those who aspire to perfect their own nature and transform it into a more godlike quality. The challenge of masonry is to be reborn incorruptible, which must be preceded by the death of the lower nature. The Masonic 3rd degree is the allegorical crucifixion, death, and resurrection of Hiram Abif, the teacher or guru who is analogous to Christ. Thus, the intention of Masonry is not the building of a temple, but the greater science of soul building. On a macrocosmic scale, as applied to America, this meant the resurrection of the Golden Age civilization of Atlantis by the resurrection of the divine identity of her citizens in the new Atlantis. Bacon was an unheralded partner in the Virginia Company that established a settlement in Virginia. He was a confidant of the English explorer, soldier, courtier, writer, and colonizer, Sir Walter Raleigh, and received correspondence from John Smith, who became president of the Jamestown colony after being saved from death at the hand of Powhatan by the chief's daughter, Pocahontas. Because Bacon worked behind the scenes, there are only a few identifiable traces of his work in the New World. In 1910, he was honoured by Newfoundland on their tricentennial commemorative stamp as the guiding spirit in colonization schemes. With the flowering of masonry in America, the prophecy of the Restoration was nearly fulfilled, but not quite. America was still a British possession. In the mid-1700s, the spirit of the Revolution swept the American colonies. I'm under attack because I want to read this out. I'm going to just repeat that line. In the mid-1700s, the spirit of the Revolution swept the American colonies. It grew out of the reaction to British tyranny and the Great Awakening. a religious revival that gave rise to the belief that God had founded a new Israel in America. The Great Awakening gave impetus to the millenarian movement, which took things one step further. A belief that God would establish in America a millennial kingdom as promised in Revelation 20. Christ would then reign 1,000 years. The religious millenarian language adapted the framework of apocalyptic history to commonly held political ideas. American liberty was God's cause. British tyranny was Antichrist's. Sin was the failure to fight the British. It takes more than a fiery sentiment to make a revolution. It takes organisation. The Masons, and only the Masons, were sufficiently organised. It is doubtful that the American Revolution could have ever happened without them. According to historian Bernard Fay, Masonry alone undertook to lay the foundation for national unity in America. It fostered a feeling of American unity in a small but prominent class of people. There could have been no United States without it, because the states were too deeply divided among themselves. By 1760, there was hardly a town, big or small, where Masonry was not preaching fraternity and unity. By 1773, Boston was the center of American discontent. Feelings ran high. When colonial tempers rose, there was a revolutionary movement ready to direct the spirit of resistance. The Masons. What made tempers rise? The tax on tea. Who hosted the first act of revolution in America? The Masons. And the affair? The Boston Tea Party. On December the 16th, 1773, Masons from the St. Andrew Lodge in Boston and some local radicals dressed as Indians sailed to the British ships and dumped the tea. The victorious Indians sailed to shore and with songs and hurrahs marched to a local tavern, disappeared inside, and were never seen again. Later, however, a lot of excited Masons were seen leaving the place. America owes an unending debt of gratitude to George Washington for the success of the Revolution and the establishment of the Republic. The fact that the colonies fielded an army at all from 1776 to 83 was due alone to Washington. Always with his soldiers, he was the general in the field. His example buoyed up their morale. He wrestled with Congress to procure food and ammunition, and when Congress became entirely helpless, he kept his men alive out of his own pocketbook. The clergy proclaimed that he was an instrument of God, one of thine own sons who saved this country. They called him the great preserver, so great a deliverer, and compared him to Moses, Joshua, and Gideon. When even Benjamin Franklin could not persuade the French king to give the American revolutionaries further material assistance, Washington prevailed by sending his own aide-de-camp to Versailles and by prayer. Like no other, Washington put his life, fortune, and sacred honor on the line for the cause. Washington was a master mason. In fact, he was the master of masters. Masons seemed to be the moving force at every key step in the building of a new nation. Paul Revere was a Mason. Estimates vary, but as many as 53 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were Masons. All but 5 of the 55 members of the Constitutional Convention were Masons. All the leading generals in the Continental Army were Masons. The leading lights of the Revolution were Masons, among them Alexander Hamilton, John Marshall, James Madison, General Nathanael Greene, General Charles Lee, and General John Sullivan. They united around their rising son, George Washington. George Washington's role in creating the new government was at least as important as his military role. Serving as president of the Constitutional Convention, he was the sun in the midst of the solar system that held the states together. It is doubtful that the states would have so patiently forged a union had he not been there. I mean, it's just sounding really like someone else we know, isn't it? Not only was he universally recognized as the only acceptable candidate for the first president, but he was the office incarnate. No one at the Constitutional Convention had any idea what the president would be like, except that he would be like Washington. They created the office and established its requirements by their perception of his virtues. The great efforts of Bacon and Washington came to fruition with the adoption of the Constitution, a document that embodied the principles of the Brotherhood. It provided that each individual would prosper based on his own efforts. The civil application of the initiatic path of the Masons, and it protected by law freedoms such as no land had ever enjoyed: speech, religion, press, and assembly. I need to read that bit again to get the phrasing right. And it protected by law freedoms such as no land has ever enjoyed: speech, religion, press, and assembly. Each person might then be free to work out his individual destiny as he saw fit. Thus, with the great gathering of the elect in the promised land, there was re-established the community of those who were free not only to keep the Lord's covenants, but to elect to do so by the gift of free will. It was a community based on true individuality. Individuality proceeds from the Hiram Abiff of the Masonic tradition, the inner Christ, the Emmanuel of Isaiah, of whom it is prophesied, the government shall be upon his shoulder. This idea was embodied in American notions of individual sovereignty. And God has smiled on our undertakings, annuit cuptis. Thus reads the motto on the Great Seal of the United States, once disparagingly called a dull emblem of a Masonic fraternity. Masonic, yes, but it is anything but dull. The seal's symbolism proclaims the true identity of the American Israelites in the tradition of the ancient mysteries. The motto Novus Ordo Seclorum represents the great work that the Masons had made their own, the establishment of the new order of the ages. Right, don't freak out, please, people, if anyone's actually still following this. Um, Remember, everything was inverted, okay? So the original Masonic idea was about building the kingdom of God so that men could be sovereign and free to be happy and pursue whatever they dreamed of. That was the original intent. And as we've heard, there was so much secret knowledge that was kind of stored in the secret societies to protect it from the rabblous masses of men and women who had lost their way and was to be kept secret until such a time as we were ready, which is now. Because of the AI internet as well, we've got to be so careful about not having that. I only like that. Don't like AI. Don't like that. I mean, look, we don't want an AI takeover of the planet. And the bottom line is we are in this battle between the organic, natural, God spark, divine blueprint of reality and this carbon copy, which is using, you know, AI and virtual reality to mimic the process of ascension that we are actually really naturally now going through. But it doesn't mean that all of those things that they've subverted are bad. We have to reclaim all of this stuff. So please don't freak out. A considerable number of early Americans apparently accepted the presence and divine intervention of heavenly intercessors as a natural part of life. The art and literature of the period frequently depicted angelic beings, gods and goddesses, and clouds of glory. The goddess of liberty, patroness of their sacred cause, was perhaps the most revered of all the heavenly hosts. In 1775, Thomas Paine honoured her in a ballad called Liberty Tree. In a chariot of light from the regions of day, the goddess of liberty came. 10,000 celestials directed her way, and hither conducted the dame. A fair budding branch from the gardens above, where millions with millions agree, she brought in her hand as a pledge of her love, and the plant she named Liberty Tree. It was the goddess of liberty who appeared to George Washington and gave him a vision of 3 trials that America would face. The first trial was the Revolutionary War, the second, the Civil War, and the third is held at bay by the invisible hand while we, the people, yet resolve by law and by love the fate of our destiny. This period of crisis was foreseen not only by George Washington, but also by the prophet Daniel, who wrote, "And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation even to that same time. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation even to that same time." I don't quite understand that, but I do. Historian Arnold Toynbee used the phrase times of troubles to describe the chaos that accompanies the disintegration of civilizations. From a historian's point of view, many agree that we are now living in that time of troubles. Despite our nation's new buoyant mood, feelings alone won't see us through this crisis. We are vulnerable to any number of potential disasters: economic collapse, nuclear war, crime, pollution, toxic waste, and dangerous new technologies, not to mention the genetic engineering of the coming race. I'm not sure if the sound of the rain on the roof is coming through. It's quite loud. It's weird. It's not real rain. It's fake rain. But anyway, we would like a little bit of rain, actually. It's been quite sunny lately. So sorry to interrupt. Um, but yeah, genetic engineering of the coming race. I mean, it's all here. It will take more than enlightened leadership to meet this challenge. No mere mortal can solve our problems. Whenever the Israelites charted a course independent of God, the results were calamitous. If the ancient Israelites could not solve their problems without God, should we be so foolish as to try? Toynbee said that a civilization in the time of troubles would collapse if its people did not go through the process of spiritualization from within, or, as he called it, etherealization. He was looking toward a veritable revolution in higher consciousness. That is the key to salvation and the moral regeneration for which America was established. Now that we know who we are and the nature of our legacy, what should we do to survive the chaos theorized by Toynbee, foreseen by Washington, prophesied by Daniel, and predicted by our Lord as the Great Tribulation? We, the people, ought to be comforted and strengthened by the message of history that God and his heavenly hierarchy, the Great White Brotherhood, conceived, bore, watches over, and is involved in the affairs of our nation. We ought to get personally involved in finding solutions to our problems. But most of all, American Israelites should do what their fathers did: call upon the Lord. After all, would the God of history, the God of Israel, lead his people so many millennia and then abandon them at the last moment? Not if he remains true to himself and to us. And the I am that I am of the Exodus is the faithful and true, the same, the word of Revelation. As all the adepts in the tradition of Christ have taught, prayer is a spiritual technique which combines the esoteric sciences of sound and invocation to create thought forms on the inner planes. These have the power to change the course of events in the world of form because their fulcrum is the word itself. I think it's really important that I mean, there's so many bits I want to kind of underline and point out and expand on, but then I'll be here for hours and hours. I've already been going for an hour and 20 minutes. But I mean, the power of this really, really got to me. I was thinking about this yesterday. We tend to pray silently, a lot of people, or not at all, not taking it seriously. But it really is the most powerful tool that we have is to speak words of prayer, to speak into existence that which we desire, which is the freedom and liberty and the joy and the expansion and the peace and the beauty and the grace and the laughter and just all amazing things and this, the exploration and the adventure. I mean, it's just never ending. It's a never ending playground that's been created and hijacked. But we are in the process of recovering that which was snuffed out. Not fully though. So yeah, I just wanted to just underline that bit there, the esoteric science of sound and invocation to create thought forms on the inner planes. Everything begins with the thoughts, and our thoughts are being controlled. The information that's going in is dictating what thoughts we have. We have to clean out everything, keep the thoughts pure. Do not allow the negative talk and the naysayers and the doomsdayers sayers, affect you. However, somebody's upset because the weather's a bit chemtrailed or, they're just losing a little bit of energy. It's not a reason to come down on them like a ton of bricks. We're here to support each other. We come down on like a ton of bricks on those who are actively, obviously, trying to derail this incredible awakening that we are in. I really wish that I didn't keep having to clear my throat. As soon as I stop, it's going to stop. Onward. I think we're nearly done. Oh, no, no, no. Oh, is that Washington's trial? Yeah, oh, we are nearly done. In these final days, we are reminded by the holy angels to address our calls not only to Archangel Michael, whom the Lord named to Daniel as the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, but also to the great adept of the Brotherhood, who is the sponsor of the United States of America and presiding master of the Aquarian Age, drumroll please, Saint Germain. It is an irony of history that the name Saint Germain isn't on every school child's tongue and that every American president has not earnestly sought his counsel. For it was Saint Germain who embodied as the Christ-bearer colonizer Christopher Columbus, and as the founder of Freemasonry Francis Bacon, and who but Saint Germain held the vision of a new Atlantis based on the principles and who but Saint Germain held the vision of a new Atlantis based on the principles of spiritual freedom and civil liberty for millennia. Indeed, Saint Germain worked tirelessly for the reassembly of the tribes of Israel and Judah in the New World, and labored to infuse the land of his dreams with the one virtue for which he gave his life again and again: freedom. Saint Germain invites us to rise to higher levels of consciousness, to find immortality in God, to be free. And if that isn't what the mystical traditions of America is all about, what is? So, every 4th of July, remember that behind the effect of the joy felt by millions from those brass bands, the fireworks, the watermelons, the All-Star game, and the carefree atmosphere of summer, there is a cause, the cause of freedom, the cause of Saint Germain, and the cause of the saints who move among us, robed in white. And when you hear those old patriotic songs, listen to the lyrics. They express a true love and recognition for the great white brotherhood and Saint Germain, the master alchemist who translated our Father's gift of free will into the greatest system of political, economic, and spiritual freedom the world has ever seen. Our Father's God, to thee author of liberty, to thee we sing. Long may our land be bright, with freedom's holy light. Protect us by thy might, great God, our King. Right, that's a 57-minute recording on my phone. I do apologize so much for the throat, and it's something I'm really battling with at the moment. Throat chakra being shut down, invisibilized, blocked, banned, deleted since before COVID. So, who am I? A spokesperson for Saint Germain, a championer for freedom all over the planet and all that. So, yeah, there we go. I think it's very interesting, and I think people need to kind of know about this. I am going to record also Washington's vision of America's trials, but that's going to be just um, on the channel. All of this is on a Telegram channel called the Works and Words of Saint Germain. Also got hiccups as well. Right, the Great Seal. Um, you might want to just screenshot this. I don't really want to read it out. My voice is kind of going. Just read it though, because it is for us. It's not for the dark side. Okay, they just piggyback and copy everything and twist it and lie to us about the meanings of things. So if you want to just take a screenshot, and then I'm now going to stop sharing my screen and work out how to go back to full screen. Right, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I'm not going to talk too much else. Again, I would love to be able to get myself into a real recording studio where I can kind of pause and rewind because, this isn't really the most professional. But unfortunately, things are as they are. This is my studio. You can see here, I've just got cushions everywhere and this thing here to kind of absorb the sound. But a final word, from England. I do need to do a video actually to just update. We do finally have a little bit more sun, a bit more light. It's not raining crazy all the time. It's not quite as cold. The electromagnetic, wind machine seems to have been taken out. However, there are still the weird clouds and weird things going on, but it's okay because we are absolutely coming out of the darkness and it's a choice. It's a choice whether people want to go like a higher route or they just want to hang around in the lower dimensions for a bit and maybe their lessons are not learned yet and we're all at different stages. We're all here for different reasons and there but for the grace of God go we. And so again, I just implore people to stop judging and stop taking out your frustration, although you might pretend to be all, yeah, it's all great, by denouncing, shit talking, and lording it over others who haven't quite got there yet is not going to earn you your ascension. Be like Christ with everybody. Okay. And with that done, I would like to hereby, sorry, look at me, it's cold. I would like to hereby fill out my application to be an American. I love you all. I also love all my little British people, but England is in a very, very dark situation. And the mind control here has been next level, which I guess it had to be, right? Sending out all that evil through the tentacles of the British Empire. Right, okay, much love, and I'm gonna go. I'm not quite sure what I'm talking about anymore. And I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it makes sense, and I hope it gives you a little bit more hope and faith. There are another two works of Saint Germain which I have just come across, which I'm in the process of reading for myself to understand, and I will be then dictating those. But for now, if you're interested in anything else to do with Saint Germain, I will leave all the information in the description box below, as they say. And my channel is the works. Well, I have a few, but my Saint Germain channel is the works and words of Saint Germain. But it's very difficult to find because everything I have is difficult to find for some reason. My website doesn't exist. My YouTube channel doesn't come up when people put it in. But whatever, it's going to be all over soon. So, good day, good night, take care, love one another, and we are definitely in it.